Hi, this is Scott, Kilo Sierra 6 Delta Alpha Yankee, and for today's video I'm going to be doing a little bit of a teardown on a Yaesu FT-60. The reason for this stems from an email that I just recently received from someone that said they've gotten an FT-60 and they were talking about the case on the radio. Now, one thing that I mentioned is that this is die-cast aluminum, but what they're telling me is theirs is plastic. Now, I've had both of these radios torn down a couple of times now, and in each case, I really didn't think to look at the front portion of the case. I don't remember noticing that it was plastic at all, but now it's kind of messing with my head a little bit, and I'm kind of curious. Is it plastic or is it die-cast aluminum? If you look at the literature from Yaesu, they're kind of unclear. If just to kind of check on it, I was going, okay, well, am I off somewhere, or did I, somehow misunderstand this? Because, I've been told they're die-cast aluminum. I've heard other people say it, but at first I thought maybe it was just somebody maybe might have confused the FT-60 with the FT-65. That has happened before a couple of times. But I ran a quick Google search, and I've noticed some other people, I think on AR15.com and some other places, asking the same question. So I need to solve this mystery, otherwise it's going to drive me insane. Since I have to tear the radio down to have a look at it myself, I thought I'd go ahead and show that breakdown, because it's always a good idea to know how to take these radios apart. I'm not recommending you do that unless you feel confident enough to do it, because you can ruin your radio if you don't know what you're doing. But for those that are interested in how the FT-60 comes apart, and they'd kind of like a look inside, because something else I noticed in the PDF brochure from Yaesu. And by the way, another quick thing that I noticed was Yaesu has pulled down all of their PDF files for the instruction manuals and a few other things that they used to have up there. The only thing they have right now under the files section on the website for the FT-60 is a brochure. Go figure. So I don't know what that necessarily portends, but I'm keeping an eye on it. How about that? But in the PDF brochure that I looked at, it did mention that the case was die-cast. It just said die-cast. It didn't say aluminum. It didn't say what materials. But I also noticed another thing that they mentioned. They said that the FT-60 is weather resistant. Now, they weren't claiming any kind of IP rating, but they did say it was weather resistant. Now, I have noted, and I have mentioned before, that when you tear these down, you will note that there is some weather protection measures that have been taken with the radio. So I'll show that as I tear the radio down, and that way you can kind of get a feel for what it actually looks like inside, and might put a little bit more confidence in your heart about this radio. I don't think it's necessarily affected at this point. Everybody kind of knows this is an awesome radio. So at this point, I'll go ahead and set this one aside, just keeping that around to, I'm not going to tear both of them down. But I just had that out as a reference. So a few things you're going to need. You're going to need some tools, obviously. You're going to need some kind of container to put the parts as you take this thing off. You're going to want to put them in here, and that way they don't get lost or misplaced, because you're going to be dealing with some tiny little screws. So the very first thing that you're going to want to do is, let's go ahead and take the battery out. And we'll set that aside. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and take the antenna off, and we'll set that aside. Then we need to get to the belt clip, and it's just these two screws. Now, these little holes for the screws serve pretty well as lanyard holes, but these holes are also meant so that you can pass a screwdriver through in order to get the screws undone for the belt clip. So we'll go ahead and pop that off as well and drop that into the dish. And we'll get this one here. Now again, I'll try to kind of fill the quiet spots as I go along, but again, I'll emphasize, if you don't feel terribly confident in doing this, if you're not very experienced at taking things apart, or if you get frustrated and have a tendency to want to force things to make them fit, you might want to think twice about doing this. It's again, it's not terribly difficult, but you can get yourself in trouble pretty quick. So we've got this done, And the next thing to do is we're going to go ahead and take these knobs off. Now the knobs are press fit, so all that you need is just a basic flat tip screwdriver and just press up gently on it until they start to come loose, and then they'll just pop off all on their own. They are keyed, so you don't need to worry about the position. And we'll do the same here. This one's a little tougher. Let's see. There we go. Got her done. Okay. Now the next thing we need to address is there are retaining nuts on each of the posts here, but they're concealed underneath. You don't see them right away. They're concealed underneath a couple of rubber booties here. Now you can just catch that with your fingernail and pull those up. You don't want to use anything too sharp. Now this one's kind of impacted in there. I'll see if I can use this little punch here because I got kind of a blunt tip and try to get this out, but you don't want to tear up the rubber. All you need to do is just get it to come up just a little bit. There we go. Looks like we're getting it. And this goes towards the weather protection. This is going to be, these rubber pieces or rubber seals are going to be what keeps water from getting down through the control knobs into the actual board. Hang on just a second, I need to check something. Okay, yeah, it wouldn't be the first time I've gotten this far in a video and then realized I hadn't turned the damn camera on. Okay, so what we have here, we have a couple of nuts. Now, the way, these aren't nuts in the conventional sense. They have a couple little slots. Essentially, what you, ideally you should have a little spanner wrench that's going to catch these two notches, and we'll see if we can actually see those. A little hard to make out the detail. But another way that you can do this is get yourself a little small tipped pin punch, and all I'm going to do is catch the edge here, or rather catch that slot and start working it around. Now you'll see the little hammer I have here. Sometimes this can be helpful. Now I'm going to try to do this so that you can see what I'm doing. It's a little hard. Usually I don't have to hold it a certain way for the benefit of the camera, but just give it a little tap, and that'll get it moving. Well, in this case, nope, it's not getting it moving at all. So let's try it from another angle here. There we go. Okay, got her going. Now it's just a matter of pushing it or just turning this around a little bit at a time. This is a little time consuming. So you kind of get the point here. I may go ahead and do just a quick jump cut to get us beyond this because this is going to take a couple of minutes to do. But I'll leave the camera running just in case I'm faster. Boy, that really is an uncomfortable silence knowing I got a bunch of people I've never met out there listening to me. Okay, there's one of them. And then we do the same thing to the other side. That one just went with a push. So we are good. Just work those around. We're almost there. Didn't quite come off. All right, there we are. Okay, so we have our little nuts undone. We don't need to worry about the antenna connection. Don't take that off. That's not going to go well for you. Okay, the next thing that you need to do to take this apart, and this is a mistake that I've made before, you need to take the two gaskets here that are going to be plugging up your speaker mic connection and your external DC connection. Undo those and turn like so. Okay, get that out of the way. If you don't do that as you try to take this apart, it's going to lock this in place because we're going to be separating this chassis portion here from the front of the radio. Okay, so you don't take that off, that's a problem. Now, another note on taking radios apart, you want to look for these things, but radios that utilize an SD card for programming purposes and memory purposes, make sure you remember to take the SD card out. I forget which radio it is, if it's the ID51 or the FT-60, but there was a problem with people taking their radios apart, forgetting the SD card was in there and just destroying the SD card in the process. So that's something to think about. And looks like that's just about it. So we are ready for the screws. Now there are 4 screws. There are 2 larger ones here and then 2 smaller ones that we're going to be undoing. So you're going to need kind of a fine tip screwdriver to get to those. We'll take off the 2 little ones first here. We'll undo that. And when I'm messing with these little screws, it really makes me appreciate the magnetic magnetic tipped bits. Okay, those 2 screws at the top are undone. Now we will get to these, and we're almost to the answer to our mystery. Now, one thing you might note here, and it's something I noted in terms of their claims of weather protection. Seals on the batteries. There is a rubber seal in this battery. Okay, so that answers that question, because I didn't notice a rubber seal on the inside, but the battery does have a rubber seal. But check for that, because if I'm not mistaken, I think I had one battery where the rubber seal actually came off. But okay, well, that would allude again towards kind of more of an IP54 type weather resistance. As I mentioned, we've got the little gaskets at the top there that provide some weather resistance, and then of course we've got our seals on our ports. So we're doing okay. But again, it would have been nice if they were going to claim weather resistance to actually give us some form of rated protection. All right, so at this point we've got all of the screws out. There's nothing else to undo. Now, to get this apart, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of separate it at an angle and then pull it out that way. So we're going to bring up the bottom, and then we're going to try to get it at an angle and then pull out. We don't want to clamshell it, otherwise we've got some delicate connections here. So the idea is we want to try to guide these 3 posts out in an economical manner. So okay, we got a little bit of separation there. And what just fell out is that is your battery latch. It's got a steel pin that goes through there. And that's something we're going to need to remember to put in, and then make sure we put it in the right way. So that goes into the little parts bin. So okay, then we just bring that out. Now, what do we got on the inside? Well, what we got on the inside, folks, looks like plastic to me. And I guess that solves the mystery. I've been thinking all along that this thing was die-cast aluminum, because it doesn't feel plasticky. It definitely has an aluminum feel, so I was a little fooled by it as well, I suppose. But looking at this, yeah, I'm seeing, yep, that is definitely plastic. So this is one of those things where, look, if you're going to say something, you're going to make a claim, and you know someone brings something else up. Well, guess what? You got to say, yeah, I was wrong. So this is indeed, the front portion is indeed plastic. Yeah, because I can get a little bit of flex out of it. A little bit of flex. I mean, it's nicely made and everything, but yeah, that's plastic. Of course, this is all aluminum. This is not plastic, this chassis portion. And I got to wonder, is that what we're talking about? Is that what they're you know, because in some cases, this is all done on plastic as well with some of the radios, but you know, to get right down to it, this is always going to be some kind of steel or aluminum, your actual board. But all right, there we are. The front of this is indeed plastic. So that's that. So now while we have it open, let's have a look at the contents here. Obviously, in terms of IP54, I'm looking for any other water egress points. Obviously, your speaker, you could get some water in through there, but I think it would sustain a splash okay. These are, again, nobody's claiming that these are submersible. But one question that comes up while we're here is Mars Cap Modification. Now, I'm not going to show you how to do the Mars Cap Modification. That is for another video that I will actually recommend. It's the one that I looked at when I was doing it. I'm actually trying to discern here where exactly the component was that I pulled off the board. It was in this neighborhood right here, and it's just a little resistor that you're going to pop off there. It's very, very tiny. Now, the method that I used was the one that was recommended, and now every time I mention this, if I talk to somebody that's really a purist when it comes to radios, I mention how I remove this by taking the tip of an X-Acto blade and getting it under the resistor and just basically knocking it off the board, which is what I did. I did it on both and it worked out okay. But when I mention that to guys that are, you know, really do things the right way, they give you that look like they just caught you fingering their cat. So it's, I won't say that's the way to do it. The actual traditional way is to use a very fine tip soldering iron and a little solder extractor. And to be honest with you, I get a little shaky hands when I'm nervous doing this kind of stuff, so I actually didn't trust myself with that. But again, I'm not recommending that method, but that is a method. But like I said, I'll leave a link to the video that I used that shows how to, you know, where that resistor is and how to knock it off. And like I said, it's a little teeny tiny thing. In fact, I had to use a giant magnifying glass. And then when I did so, I think I looked at the diagram probably 20 times before I actually did it. I finally was totally sure I was in the right neighborhood, crossed my fingers, knocked on wood, you know, said a prayer to Odin, and ping, off it came. And I turned the radio on after I put it all back together and everything worked just fine. Then I did it on the other radio. And I've since done that on FT-60. I have not done it on the VX6. That's one that I should do, but I haven't. So with that, we'll go ahead and bring it to a close. It's with, well, actually, one more thing to point out. A little bit more weather protection here. There's a nice little rubber piece on the top here that also provides some additional weather resistance. So in terms of weather resistance, it looks like there's good seals, good gaskets all the way across the board. Excuse me. And just to recap, yeah, the front of this damn thing is indeed plastic. Bit of a disappointment, but still a damn good radio. So to the guy that emailed me, yes, dude, you were absolutely right. And I will definitely post this video proudly. And I'll do an annotation on my FT-60 video as an update that, hey, the front portion of this is indeed plastic. And we'll move on from there. So with that, I'll bring it to a close. And thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.